Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking about another Chicago Bears victory coupled with what the hell is happening with the Chicago Bulls. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Sure, COVID stole the season again, but that shouldn't stop you from heading on over to icehogs.com, getting yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, signing up for season tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, how are you doing on this fine Victory Sunday?
I'm doing very well. I had a good Christmas, at least as good as it could be, and I hope you had the same. And everyone listening, I hope they had a happy holidays as well. I'm still very, very mixed on my emotions, if I must say. Though I gotta say, it's pretty crazy that we are now sitting here talking about the Bears possibly controlling their own destiny. If you'd have told me that even 3 weeks ago, I would have just laughed in your face. I mean, we were talking just a few weeks ago about how this team was absolutely toast. And, you know, there's a lot I want to get into here, but I mean, the scenario is what the scenario is, and the Bears could be playoff bound next week.
I mean, yeah, absolutely they could be. It's you had what should have been an easy victory for Arizona, beating a 49ers team that didn't have their starting quarterback. They were playing with CJ Beathard, and a banged up defense, and you should have been able to take advantage of that. And the 49ers came in there ready to play and just whooped Arizona. It's like Arizona wasn't ready to play at all. And now what you have is the Bears have tied with their couple of wins in a row. They have tied Arizona, have the tiebreaker over Arizona, and they are, exactly like you said, controlling their own destiny. They beat Green Bay. They guarantee themselves a playoff spot. If they lose to Green Bay, then they need Arizona to lose.
And as we're talking right now, the Seahawks just beat the Rams. So that means that tonight the Packers cannot clinch the number one overall seed. So there will be something to play for next week for Green Bay, which means the Bears will be facing a full-on Packers team. I think we could pretty much throw out the possibility of them resting their starters. That's not going to happen. And, you know, frankly, even if maybe they didn't have something to play for, who knows what they would have done. But look, the Bears, in my opinion, if they want to truly make a statement, if they want to get me on board, I'm still not very confident. I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I know some listeners might, you know, not like hearing that. I don't know. I don't really know how our listeners feel, to be honest with you, as a whole. I'm sure there's mixed emotions like mine, but I've seen this movie so many times before, and I'm glad that they're in a position where they can do something positive, merely for the fact that we need something to cheer for. And as a Bears fan, the last decade, we haven't gotten to watch the Bears really do anything relevant this late in the season that too often. But look, a combined 11 wins is what the Bears' opponents have had the past few weeks. They just beat a team trying to lose. The week before that, the Vikings are terrible. And then the Texans are terrible. And then, you know, you blew that game against an absolutely god-awful, terrible Detroit team. So if you want to reel me in, beat Green Bay next Sunday. That's how you'll reel me in. Beat Green Bay next Sunday.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Listen, before I get somebody jumping down my throat, yelling that I'm not a real fan, I would love to see the Bears in the playoffs.
We all would.
But I want to see them in there where they could win a game and make some noise, not where it was just a terrible season in the NFC. And I mean, they wouldn't be sniffing the playoffs in the AFC. This is just a really bad NFC. And so, sure, they might backdoor their way in because up until today, we're in the second to last week of the season, and the 4-win Philadelphia Eagles had a realistic chance of winning the division.
The Cowboys can still win the division. Put that in perspective.
Yeah, the team that wins that division is going to have a losing record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's where we are with the NFC. So, it's one thing, the Bears will make the playoffs, but so many teams just gave up and aren't playing for crap. And, I would like to see the Bears in there, but I want to see them do something. And they can prove to me, like you said, beating the 3 worst defenses in football in a row. Well, Vikings not, but the Texans.
They gave up 50 plus points. They're pretty damn bad.
Yeah, the Vikings are. I mean, I wouldn't call them one of the 5 worst, but the Texans and the Jags are bad defenses. You played 3 bad defenses and you scored a bunch of points. So whoop-de-doo. I want to see what you can do against the Green Bay Packers that have not a depleted Green Bay Packers, not a Green Bay Packers that are resting people, but a Green Bay Packer team that is trying to get the only bye in the NFC. And in order to guarantee it, they need to beat you. In order for you to make the playoffs, you need to beat them. So you're both playing for something in the last week of the season. If you can beat Green Bay, then suddenly I go, well, if you can beat Green Bay, you could beat anybody in the NFC.
Right. And look, I've been asking people around, some people I know who listen, some of our good friends on the show, I asked them to give me some questions that we can maybe answer about where the Bears currently are. And, one of them that I got was, who's safe given they have made this push? That's from John, who was on the show last week. And again, thank you, John, for coming on the show last week. Look, I don't really want to...
Not to interrupt. John was awesome having him on the show. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, he was. And it's too bad that the Bulls are off to such a shitty start after that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So what was John's question? I'm sorry.
Who's safe given they have made this push? And we've heard today the rumblings that Matt Nagy's job is pretty much safe. And look, there's still a week to play. And, I don't really know how much bearing that has. But I made a bet with you a few weeks ago. And I'm still going to honor that bet because we made it and we put it down on paper. But if you ask me right now, I think most of the big jobs are safe at this point. I just have that feeling.
Yeah. I mean,
it's hard to fire a coach who's not had a losing season in 3 years.
It is, but when you look at where they've headed, so I mean where they started and where they are now, you've essentially ruined a window. And what do you have to show for yourself? I think, Ryan Pace, I think, has to go. Do you trust him to solve this quarterback issue?
No. No.
And like I said, is the way this team works is don't be shocked if they don't fire anybody, or they just fire one person. And that might be Ryan Pace. That might be Chuck Pagano. But I'm thinking it's not going to be Matt Nagy.
Look, if I'm not saying this is how they're going to operate or if this is really going to be possible, I am just giving a personal preference. If they decided to fire both Pagano and Pace and keep Nagy, I'd be okay with that. because Nagy has turned the play calling over to Bill Lazor, and I think that Nagy does deserve some credit for keeping this team going. Because I can guarantee you right now that if this were a John Fox coach team, they'd probably have 5 or 6 wins right now at best, and they wouldn't even be near it. So I think there is something to be said about Nagy's culture / head coaching style, not in terms of in-game strategy, but just as a head coach. And if you maybe get him a new GM that supplies him with some different things, and then you have coordinators to supply him with the things that they can do better than him, then I'm okay with keeping Matt Nagy around. He is not the highest on the list of desired firings. I mean, right, I don't want anybody to lose their jobs, but I'm just saying for the sake of the Bears, I think that getting rid of Ryan Pace and Chuck Pagano would be higher on the need list for the future of the Bears than Matt Nagy. Not saying that Matt Nagy is exempt from everything or that he should just not deserve blame for anything. You get what I mean, right?
Yeah. And Bill Lazor has been a savior for Matt Nagy. Honestly, it's, he's brought about an identity on this team. David Montgomery, I've been singing his praises since they drafted him because I watched all of his film in college and I loved him. And I was like, and everyone's like poo-pooing him. And I was like, no, it's they're not using him right. And that offensive line is not giving him anything to work with. Now you're giving him the opportunity and you're watching how many tackles he breaks and how hard he is to bring down. He's a real beast. And we're seeing that. So this is a team that when Matt Nagy relinquished control of the play calling, went to a running attack where they're limiting Mitch Trubisky, and Mitch is still finding ways to make mistakes.
Yeah, and on the Trubisky subject, I do have this question. This is one more question I'll touch on in terms of future. Then we can obviously get to the game and the current status of the Bears. But, obviously with the limited cap, do we think the Bears keep Trubisky for another year or two, or do you think he might be an Alex Smith type quarterback? That's part 2 of the question. And that's from my good friend Andrew, who is also another avid listener of the show. So thank you, Andrew, for that. Shout out to you. I'll just go ahead and give my opinion. Look, the franchise tag is not an option because you'd be paying $27 million for 1 year of Mitchell Trubisky. And watching the game today, you have a guy that still, I don't think will get to that next level. He could play efficiently, or decently efficiently, I should say, as kind of a limited play to his strengths type guy. But to take that next step, you don't throw that type of pick that he threw today and have a lot of confidence that he could step up like that. That pick was most NFL quarterbacks wouldn't even think about throwing that ball. We've seen Mitch Trubisky play well as kind of more of a game manager type play to the scheme, which is Bill Lazor playing to his strengths. And, that can beat down on some good teams, or some bad teams, I should say, but against good teams, we've yet to see it. But with that being said, there's really nobody on the market. You're stuck with Nick Foles for another year. And I don't think Mitch Trubisky is going to be a hot commodity on the market, so maybe you give him a 1-2 year deal with 1 year guaranteed, and then think about the future of the quarterback position next year, because I don't think you can solve this issue completely this offseason looking at where you're at.
Here's the reality where things are is, you can't use the franchise tag on him because it is way too much money, and you're already in a cap crunch, and you've got to pay Nick Foles. Do you try to just see what the market offers him, which is a reality because there's going to be a lot of teams hurting for financial cap space because of the cap number, and hope that he doesn't get a huge offer. But honestly, I think the reality of the situation you're in is you're gonna have to go with Nick Foles and draft somebody.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Foles is going to be around next year. That's obviously a given. And, Trubisky is not going to be here for the long term. I can pretty much guarantee that. I just have not seen any real reason to keep him around long term. Yeah, he could beat these bad teams, but you can't make mistakes like he does in big games. And we've seen it. The reality is they really haven't beaten good teams outside Tampa Bay. And if Trubisky was taking the next step, then hopefully we'd see that next week and then maybe in the playoffs, but I'm not putting my money on that.
Yeah, I just, it's as much as it sucks. I think my dream scenario is if you had another year of Trubisky and you could get rid of Foles, draft somebody, and make a decision based on hey, is the guy we drafted the guy, or has Mitch earned it with the one more year? The problem with prove it years with quarterbacks is typically they give you ambiguous results. And that's exactly what Mitch did. He sucked in the beginning. They benched him. Foles was really bad. They bring back Trubisky, and he's beat up on some bad teams. The offense has been better. The run game looks better with Mitch Trubisky over Nick Foles. And it's, I mean, honestly, I think you just have to bite the bullet and say, you know what, we're not gonna financially tie ourselves to this guy anymore. We can't afford to. Let him walk. Unless nobody offers him something and you can offer him backup type money, like good backup type money, but I'm talking like $7-8 million a year, and go from there. But I don't think that happens. I think somebody will still offer him, some decent scratch. But yeah, I think you just got to draft somebody and hope that they quickly, ascend and take over the mantle, so you don't have to get Nick Foles a whole season as a starter.
Yeah, I mean, anything that can really change my opinion on this is if he goes out, balls out against Green Bay, and maybe the Bears win a playoff game or two, and he's balling out against playoff teams. That would maybe think twice about it, but until that actually happens, if it actually does, which again I'm not banking on, I'm going to keep the same opinion I've had for a while. I'm really trying to give Mitch Trubisky some credit for beating these bad teams, but not too much credit, because you got to put it in perspective. It's clear to me that Mitch Trubisky's better than the likes of, Mike Glennon, who we played today, or Jimmy Clausen, or some of the countless other bad quarterbacks we've had here. But he was drafted number 2 overall to be the franchise quarterback, and we haven't seen anything that can show that. If we did see that, we would probably have more playoff appearances, more playoff wins, and dare I say it, maybe even a Super Bowl by now. But we haven't seen that yet. I really think that as we go into this last week, that everybody on this Bears team is going to play their heart out. But that's only going to get you so far. You got to play good enough to win. You can have the heart, but you got to perform. This coming game against Green Bay is one of the ultimate tests for this Bears team. Unfortunately, I think that they've put themselves in a position where it's either win all or just lose. There's no consolation prize here. If you get to the playoffs, weird things can happen in the playoffs. I mean, you get there when you get there. We won't even talk about that yet because they're not there yet. But if you lose, you finish 8-8 again. 8-8 gets you nowhere. This was supposed to be a window of contention. So, yes, am I glad we're in a position to potentially make the playoffs? It's nice. We don't see it very often. I just wish the circumstances were different. I wish that I could have more faith. If this Bears team was going on a run and maybe beating some good teams, then maybe I'd feel a little bit different. But I know I keep hammering on this. Vikings, the Lions, who they lost to, the Jaguars, the Texans are all terrible teams. And the last good team we played really was Green Bay, who they have to play next week. And they got manhandled. It was a mugging with a TV audience. So it keeps circling around to this really, really weird position that I want to sound more optimistic and upbeat about, but there's just so much going on right now. But all the Bears can do is think about making the playoffs and trying to make a run here. That's all they can do.
You said, Mitch is better than some of the dregs that they've had. Statistically, he's a top 5 quarterback in Bears history. I mean, Jay Cutler is the best statistical quarterback the Chicago Bears have ever had.
And he has 1 playoff win in his tenure as a Bear and 1 playoff appearance.
Let's just look at touchdown passes. Jay Cutler threw 154 touchdown passes as a Chicago Bear. Sid Luckman threw 137. Next is Billy Wade, who threw 68.
Hey, Sid Luckman and Billy Wade brought us championships, baby. And I don't even like counting quarterbacks from those eras because it was a completely different game back then. So that goes to show the history of this team and quarterbacks.
Yeah, as far as yards go, Jay Cutler is almost double Sid Luckman.
My God, that is sad.
Then Jay Cutler, Sid Luckman, Jim Harbaugh, Jim McMahon, Eric Kramer, Mitch Trubisky, and those Harbaugh, McMahon, Kramer, and Trubisky are all pretty much right there in the same bucket. I think if Mitch would have played the entire season, he probably would have passed all of them this season.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, I don't even know if this includes today. If this doesn't include today, he might even pass Eric Kramer still. But if he would have played those other games, he's like 1,400 yards behind Jim McMahon. Realistically, he's like a top 5 quarterback in this team's franchise, and you can't even figure out if he's worth bringing back for a 5th year. That's where this team is at. So, going back to the point here is sure, Ryan Pace has done some good things, but he hasn't figured out the offensive line and the quarterback, and those are the 2 things that he needed to figure out. Absolutely needed to figure out.
We got breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Jared Goff suffers a broken thumb during today's loss to Seattle. This could potentially knock him out for next week against Arizona.
Well, that's not good for the Bears. So it means the Bears essentially have to win against the Packers.
Pretty much. Though I don't know what the Cardinals are going to do next week. That team is so unpredictable. They looked so bad against the 49ers.
They
but still,
really did. They looked so bad.
Yeah, they looked awful. But yeah, that's not great. I don't know. I don't even know who the Rams' backup is. Do you know?
I don't. Wait, I do. Wait, it is. Trying to think.
I'm going on their depth chart.
Is it
right
Case
now.
Keenum?
Let's see. Well, according to this, it's John Wolford.
Oof.
I don't know if that's as up to date or not, because that's a depth chart from our lads. Let's go to the Rams official team site, shall we? Yeah, John Wolford.
Oof. I don't even know who that is.
I don't know who that is either. Let's see, John Wolford. His picture looks like someone you've never heard of. He's from Wake Forest. 6'1", 200 pounds. Game log. Nothing.
Wow. John.
He was
Wolford.
released by the Jets practice squad.
I got to see this picture here.
Just go on the Rams website.
Oh my goodness.
That guy might be what helps the Bears or get to the playoffs.
The picture I'm looking at looks like he works at the gas station wearing a Rams shirt. He's like, bro, you forgot your change. Now just put it in the jar. You sure, man? Thanks, man.
He has never thrown a pass in the NFL.
Our hopes of the playoffs are resting on that guy suddenly being good.
And by some miracle, the Bears beating Green Bay.
Oh my God.
But, I did say if I wanted to take the optimistic route, the Cardinals really looked bad against San Francisco. I don't know.
Let's talk about this game a little bit today.
Okay.
This is the team with the worst record in the NFL.
Yeah. They clinched the number 1 draft spot. So Trevor Lawrence, here they come.
Yeah. So they benched Gardner Minshew in favor of Mike Glennon.
I'm sure that wasn't intentional. I'm sure of it.
So they have a terrible quarterback situation, but now they're about to have a very good quarterback situation in a couple of months. But this is a bad team. They don't do anything well. They have a terrible defense. I think they have the worst rushing defense in the NFL. And at halftime, this was a game.
It was. And you know what? I think it's fair to say that part of it was the Jaguars players themselves. They knew what position they were in. They know everybody was writing them off. They probably just wanted to go and show people that they could play. But with that being said, the Bears continued with their soft, no blitz defense that allows teams to just carve them up. And we saw that in the first half.
We saw in the first half, you're right, is the Jaguars, they weren't putting up a ton of points, but they were pretty much moving the ball up and down the field.
Mm-hmm.
And you just watch it. It's absolutely infuriating and frustrating. And, I know we're banged up in the secondary, but it's they couldn't get pressure on this team that has given up 68 sacks this year, something ridiculous, or 48. It's a lot of sacks. They've given up a lot of sacks, and the Bears just couldn't get home on a guy who cannot run. I mean, this is the quintessential statue quarterback.
You should have been blitzing almost every time. I don't get it. I truly don't get it.
I mean, we had Mike Glennon on this team. We know he can't beat the blitz. He can't pick these things up, and he can't outrun anything. He can't maneuver in that pocket. You should have blitzed him. You should have made it uncomfortable. And ultimately, the situation was the Bears just turned on the points, and then, I mean, sometimes a good offense is the best defense, because when teams start, the pressure is on, well, we have to start scoring points, then they can't move the ball. But you give them hope like they're in the game, like they were, then they hang around. And so it's weird. We've never been in that position where our offense generates so many points that we just, we defeat the other team with their will.
Pretty much.
But, you know, I was trying to explain to somebody how bad the Jags are. And, you know, you watch games, and sure, you can see differences in player skill level, but not like it is in the college where just somebody's so much better. But where this team just falls apart is the stupid mistakes, both coaching and players. And I think the epitome of that is the Bears had like a 53-yard field goal at the end of the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Not very much time. And instead of playing tough defense and letting them take a shot at the end zone, and then forcing them into, a long field goal, you gave them an easy pass in the middle where they moved up to make it a 38-yard field goal, and essentially stop the clock, and you just made it from a hard field goal to a gimme. Like,
yeah, I mean, that had the announcers pulling their hair out.
Like, it was literally the dumbest thing I would say it's the dumbest thing I've seen, but I saw the end of the Raiders-Dolphins game.
Oh my God. What on earth were they thinking? Why take a knee? I didn't really have any investment on who was winning or losing that game, but that made me want to bang my head against the wall. That is all-time galaxy brain going to come back and bite you in the ass if I've ever seen one.
Well, that series ended the Raiders' hopes for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's just brutal.
Yeah, it's where's halftime? Yeah, so I mean, for those that didn't see it, essentially at the end of the game, the Raiders decided not to. They had first and goal, didn't make it on first down, and they decided to forego second and third down and kick a field goal to take the 2-point lead. And with very, very little time left. And then the Dolphins got the ball, and they had some Fitzmagic drop back, and somebody decided to spin his head around his body like the Exorcist by his face mask. He somehow got the ball off with his neck spun around, throws it, the guy catches it, and it takes them, I think they were around their own 20-yard line, throws it to about the 40, completes the pass, tacks on 15 yards for the face mask, puts them in field goal range. They kick a field goal to win the game. It was like every stupid thing that could happen in that series of events, it happened in that game.
Yeah, it was so funny to see, and it was kind of like one of those things where you knew something crazy was going to happen when they decided to pull that. It's like you were like, just watch, and then sure enough, that happened. How that got completed, it just defies everything. But you know what, man? Fitzmagic. 1 week he's like the greatest, the next week he's like the worst. You want to talk about the weirdest tenure in the NFL as a quarterback? Point to him.
It is hilarious. He's literally either amazing or terrible. There is just no middle ground with that guy, and you never know what you're gonna get with him.
Yeah, you could get 4 touchdowns or 4 picks.
But back to this Bears game. So there was the boneheaded play that allowed the Bears to get a field goal. But other than that, in the first half, you saw some good movement from the Bears being able to run the ball, move the ball, and you're like, okay, I'm going to see some things, but they didn't score a lot of points, and that's frustrating, is being able to move the ball and not get points. So in the first drive, they get a touchdown, then a field goal, but then you have the quick 3 and out after that. Then you have the nice drive where you march down the field and Trubisky throws an interception in the end zone on an absolute dumb play. Dumb play.
I think what really frustrated me the most in the first half, 1st and goal at the 1, and they're doing trick plays with Cole Kmet instead of running right up the middle with Montgomery. I was convinced in that moment that Matt Nagy just ripped the headset off Bill Lazor and put like dual headsets on him to call that play.
You know, it was absolutely a Matt Nagy play. You're right. That was infuriating because it went from 1st and goal from the half-yard line because the pass interference call brought him down to the 1, and then there was the neutral zone infraction that moved it half the distance to the goal. So it was 1st and goal from 1.5 feet, and you tried to do a toss play to your tight end. It's like, you gotta go north and south in those plays. You can't go east and west, and that's exactly what happened. And you ended up then 2nd and goal from the 4.5. And then that just takes away a lot of options. But you had 1st and goal from the half-yard line against the worst rushing defense in the NFL. And you don't try to pound that in. You got to at least take that shot.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get that at all. What also kind of made me a little confused is that they really wanted to use Mitch throwing more than the run game early on in the game. We saw how good they were with establishing the run early. And, you know, Montgomery finished with a pretty solid game. I'm just surprised they threw as much as they did. I don't know if they thought maybe the Jaguars D-line could get to him. I really don't know. I was just kind of surprised that they didn't run as much as they have been doing the past few weeks. In the end, it didn't really cost them, but, you know, that was one thing I also noted. I mean, the first half was really frustrating. You know, I thought, oh, man, are they really going to do this? Are they really going to make this game more complicated than it has to be? But what I could say is, you know, thank goodness that even though Mitch Trubisky got picked off, they still got those points thanks to that awful Mike Glennon pick. But even on that pick, Robert Quinn almost fumbled the ball. So you had a lot of just sloppiness go on in that first half. And look, you can get away with it against the Jaguars, but you're not going to get away with it against Green Bay. The second half is obviously, I know we'll get to that in a minute, but the second half was obviously a very different story, the story that we were expecting to see. But, you know, my whole point is here, if you have any hopes at all, even if they're minuscule, of beating Green Bay next week, you can't be doing that stuff right out of the gate because you will pay for it right away. And you don't want to be in a 14-0 hole within the first 7 minutes of the game, because that is what will happen if you play like that against Green Bay next week.
You mean sort of like Tennessee is right now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Packers are just moving up and down the field with ease.
I hate to say it, man, but I think the Packers might go all the way this year.
I think they'll make it to the Super Bowl, but I mean, I don't think they're winning.
Don't think so?
No, I don't think they can beat Kansas City.
I don't know. Kansas City hasn't looked all, even though they're winning. I was having a discussion with my friend earlier today. We're like, is Kansas City showing some chinks in the armor despite the wins, or are they just kind of dicking around? I guess time will tell, but I don't know.
I just feel like they're just sort of bored. They're ready for the playoffs. They're like a juggernaut team. It's they're like at the second half of the games, they're just like, yeah, I better turn this on so I can win. but they've cruised. Sure, they haven't, they've kept games close, but they only have one loss.
I know it's hard to go against that. It really is. And maybe they are just sticking around. That very well could be the case. I'm just saying, even look, they needed a missed field goal today to beat the Falcons. And then last week, well, I know they played the Saints a few weeks ago, and offense looks pretty good there. But, anyway, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent on other teams. All I'm saying is that you better be playing your best game and not like you did today against the Jaguars in the first half if you want to beat Green Bay. Now, here's the thing. You could look at that first half in two ways. On one hand, you could be like, well, here are all the mistakes and the bad things we've seen all season. This is obviously a trend. Or maybe you look at it as they were kind of dicking around. They're like, okay, we're just playing the Jaguars. And then they had to realize at halftime, hey, we better kind of wake up here because the Jags aren't just going to roll over here, clearly. And then obviously they did eventually roll over. But it's just when you see the same things happen over and over, that's when it gets a little irritating. Look, good teams lose the bad teams, mediocre teams lose the bad teams, or they at least don't have a good first little bit against them. The only thing that frustrated me really about that first half is because there were so many of the reoccurring trends we've seen all season long.
I mean, this team, here's the issues. Mitch will throw into ridiculous coverages for no reason. Mm-hmm. He will not throw the ball away. That's never going to change. It's who he is. It's in his DNA. The defense is, they're not generating pressure. They're not blitzing. They look reactive rather than proactive. You're still having difficulty stopping the run. I mean, the running back from Jacksonville averaged over 5 yards a carry against them. You made Mike Glennon in the first half look really good. He threw for 200 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. You made Chenault and Chark look super good. You have issues. What do you think is going to happen when you try to do that with Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams? Like, you can't have that happen.
Yeah, no. And I think Rodgers is going to be clinching that MVP tonight.
Whew. Yeah, and a lot of those passes to Allen Robinson were the same play over and over. And the Jaguars didn't have anybody to cover him and didn't have any answer for this one play where it was a skinny post in the inside, like a thin slant coming in and thrown for like 12 yards. And they just kept doing that to Allen Robinson and catch. And I was like, any team that had a decent defense would be like, all right, well, that's clearly what they want to run, and take that away.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least try to defend it. Oh my God. Davante Adams is wearing a crown right now.
Glad I'm not watching that.
He's literally wearing it looks like the Burger King crown.
I used to have one of those.
Yeah, but not the paper one. It's like metal though.
I used to have one of those.
Of course you
Actually, it was my brother's for a Halloween costume, and then he just kind of left it around the house. This was a long time ago. So it was a nice win. It was really nice to, at no point did I ever feel like this game was in doubt. Once the Bears scored first, even when the game was tied up, I was like, I felt as if this was a minor setback in a game and the Bears will figure this out. And they did. So it was easy, comfortable win. I didn't feel stressed out, but it was against the worst team in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, you look at the final score, you say, without any context, you say, yeah, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They blew them out. That's what they were supposed to do. The second half wasn't even a contest. You had Mike Glennon throwing picks. You had Jimmy Graham getting touchdowns, and you had Pierce getting touchdowns. You had Montgomery get another touchdown. I mean, the second half was just a beating, and that's what we wanted to see in the beginning. It still ended up being a blowout, so you can't complain about the final score. You can't complain about the second half adjustments. But yes, as you said, they just beat a team that was trying to lose, and now they're jumping for joy because Trevor Lawrence is next for them.
Yeah, so they really had nothing to play for other than getting that top pick. The Bears did have something to play for, and they do still have something to play for. And my fear is that they feel like they can do these things against Green Bay, and they're not going to be able to. They can't let, their kind of thing has been letting teams march up and down the field and then bend but don't break and playing stout defense.
That ain't gonna work.
And forcing field goals. That's not going to work. If you let Green Bay get into the red zone, they're going to score touchdowns. If you can't sack Aaron Rodgers, you are going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And you better disguise those. You're not going to get there with your front four. You'd better send blitzers, and you better disguise those blitzers. And, man, they're just manhandling Tennessee.
Yeah. I know Tennessee's secondary isn't great, but still.
Oh, no, they are sacking Tannehill left and right. Oof.
Oh, you're talking about, okay.
They are just manhandling that offensive line.
Yeah.
Two free rushers, both outside linebackers, basically free. It's a 4th and 27 right now.
Oh my goodness.
Back-to-back sacks. Yeah, so this is what we're in for. This team hates the Bears. They want to beat the Bears. They want to knock the Bears out of the playoffs, and they want that first round bye.
And all they've done is beat the Bears the past 30 years.
And here's the thing, is as much as I want the Bears to beat the Packers, I don't know how that happens. I just don't know how that happens. And honestly, if the Packers blow the Bears out, I think that might be the nail in the coffin, because that is, I feel like the McCaskey family are. Have you ever talked to those people where you can sway their minds with whatever the last thing they heard is?
Mm-hmm. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I feel like that's what the McCaskies are. And they're like, well, so when the Bears lost 6 in a row, we're going to fire everybody. Then they win a couple in a row. And well, you know what? There's been some good things. We have to consider those. And I feel like if they get trounced by Green Bay and don't make the playoffs, that'll be the last thing they remember and do what needs to be done.
You know what? And this is another thing, too, you got to remember. They have said publicly that they take those Bears-Packers games much more serious than any other game. So if the playoffs are the line and you get blown out, the old lady's going to be pretty pissed. I mean, let's be real here. Look, if Jared Goff is truly out next week, and looks like he very well could be, and the Cardinals have a pretty easy win against a Goff-less Rams team. And you know what? I don't think the Rams are even that good. I mean, you look at what they did against Seattle. They were bad today, and they lost to the Jets. I don't think that there is a lock, even with Jared Goff, to beat the Arizona Cardinals. So you know what? Where we're at with this team in the future, it almost feels more beneficial for the Bears to have to control their own destiny. Because a Cardinals loss and a Bears loss, a blowout loss, but the Cardinals losing still gets them in the playoffs. And am I going to be mad about making the playoffs? No, but it's just not going, like you said earlier, it's not going to feel productive, or it's not going to feel I don't know if right's the right word, but it's kind of telling you backed into the playoffs on accident. You just got beat by a playoff team. And you're going to the playoffs probably to get killed again. I know anything can happen in the playoffs, but tell me, would you be more confident going forward beating Green Bay or backing into the playoffs? I think the answer is pretty obvious.
It's absolutely obvious. If you can beat Green Bay Packers, you feel confident you can beat anybody in the NFC because you've already beat Tampa. And if you beat Green Bay to make it in the playoffs, you have to just feel absolute confidence. But if you back into it, who do you feel confident you can beat? You know, your wins have been against a terrible Atlanta team, a terrible Detroit team, a bad Minnesota team, a terrible Jacksonville team, a terrible Texans team. Like all the teams that you beat, almost all of them fired their GMs.
Yeah, and look at your losses. You lost to Green Bay. You lost to the Rams. You lost to New Orleans. I mean, those right there, those are going to be big opponents right there. And you know what? If the Bears just get trounced, I just say, you know what? They didn't deserve to make the playoffs. If you get trounced and you got to win, then you don't deserve to make the playoffs.
But, you know, going back to is if you get trounced by Green Bay, you're right. This family takes it very personally when they lose to Green Bay. And in a little over a week, Virginia McCaskey is going to turn 98 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I think January 5th. She's going to turn 98 years old. How many Bears-Packers games do you think she has left?
Well, it depends. Most likely not very many. But if she's like Mr. Burns, where she like puts her head in like a robot and she's living like thousands of years later, then, you know, who knows? But I'm going to guess the first one as in not many.
I mean, realistically, she has, probably fairly safe to assume that she gets one more. But, I mean, what are the odds that she gets 3 more? 5 more? They can't be, just not being morbid, she's 98 years old.
Yeah.
Like, what percentage of people live to be 100?
Not many.
Not very many people live to be that old. So she's going to be, she's got this one. And then after that, this might be her very last Bears-Packers game. And if they lose, I just, I'm not trying to be morbid here, but she's got to take these really personally.
Look, we haven't had a Bears-Packers game really this big since Week 17, 2013, and we all remember what happened there. I'm just saying, it's been a while. I mean, the Bears won the division in 2018 against the Packers, but the Packers were pretty much screwed anyway. It was Week 16. The Bears were miles ahead of them, and them clinching the division was pretty much inevitable. That Packers team was not good. Yes, the Packers are more secure. They're just playing for seeding. They're in the playoffs no matter what, and the Bears have to fight to survive, but both teams are going to have something on the line here. I mean, I'm pretty sure most bettors are going to be betting towards Green Bay next week, and I don't blame them for doing that. And I hate talking about this stat, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. The Bears have beaten Aaron Rodgers at home a grand total of 3 times. And Aaron Rodgers has been the starter for Green Bay since 2008. That's over a decade's worth of games. The Bears have 3 wins against him overall at home. And if you go back to even like the beginning of Brett Favre, I'm pretty sure the Bears have won like maybe 5 home games against the Packers like the past 30 years. Something ridiculous like that.
It has been an absolute owning.
Yeah, and you know what my dad would tell me? When I was younger, it was the other way around. Wish I could have seen it.
I mean, I remember when the Packers were nothing. They weren't the team to beat. And, suddenly you have back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks. It changes everything. And, I've argued with people online. They're just like, just draft a later round quarterback. You got to fix your offensive line. No, you need to fix the quarterback. Your offensive line is actually okay as is. Yeah, obviously you'd like to improve it, but it's okay as is. And your quarterback situation is not okay. And replacing Mitch Trubisky with a third round quarterback, fourth round quarterback is just setting yourself up for failure. You're just going to add another name to that long list of Bears quarterbacks that have started since, Aaron Rodgers has started playing. It started with Brett Favre. There was like 25 Bears quarterbacks in the time Brett Favre was there. And look at how many with Aaron Rodgers. It's despicable, and you need to fix it. And sure, first round quarterbacks, second round quarterbacks don't guarantee you anything, but it's your best odds to have success.
Yes, absolutely. You see the difference between having a great quarterback and a not great quarterback. I mean, you look at the difference between the Bears and the Packers the past 30 years. I mean, Sean, my whole life, outside maybe 3 years, they've never been able to beat this team. The only time I remember them beating this team was in the mid-2000s. Because if you remember, 05-07, they swept the Packers both those years. And then in 06, they beat them week 1. They shut them out 26-0. They lost to them week 17 when it didn't matter and the Bears went to the Super Bowl. But outside that little run, we have 4 wins against them since 2010 and I think 5 since 2008. They beat them in overtime in 08. They beat them in the regular season in 2010. They beat him in 2013 when he broke his collarbone. They beat him in 2015 on Thanksgiving. They beat him, beat Aaron Rodgers, I should say, specifically, and the Packers as a whole in week 16, 2018, when they won the division. That's 5 times out of how many games? And right now, Aaron Rodgers looks like he's in his prime again. There were people saying, is Aaron Rodgers done? Is Aaron Rodgers done? The past 2 years, he didn't look like quite his dominant self. Well, he looks like his dominant self again, and he knows how to win at Soldier Field. And I hate that this podcast has to be so grim, that this episode has to be so grim when there is a chance for the Bears to clinch a playoff spot. But like you said, Sean, I am just being completely honest. I don't see how this Bears team beats Green Bay next week. I want to eat crow so bad. I want to look at both of us next week and saying what unfaithful loons we were. But as it stands right now, 12/27/20 at 8:24 p.m. local Central Time, I don't see how they beat Green Bay next week.
Vegas agrees with us. The opening line is over a touchdown favorite, Green Bay.
Yeah, well. Sean, I'm going to say this too next week. If you're going to lose, I'd rather get blown out than lose on the last play like they did in 2013 or have the lead late and then just choke on it. Because that's just going to add insult to injury over everything. If you're going to beat us, just beat us. If not, I want to win the game. I either win or just flat out beat us. I don't want some miracle Hail Mary play. I don't want some Rodgers somehow escapes 3 sacks play with the Bears up by 3 with a minute to go, leading to a game-winning drive. Because that would just make it so much worse.
Oh yeah, that's when they give you hope and take it away. That's the most frustrating part.
And I will never forget 2013, that week 17. That loss bothers me more than any other loss to the Packers in my lifetime, even the NFC Championship. And I think the NFC Championship set this team back a long time. But you know what? When your starting quarterback goes out and you have to rely on your third stringer to come back, chances are you're not going to win that game. And yeah, the game was winnable. But when you lose your starting quarterback, it makes it a lot less probable. But 2013, week 17, the last time that these two teams played in the final game of the season, there is no loss against the Packers that bothers me more than that game. And I would just hate for something to happen like that again.
I can swallow a blowout more than I can swallow a we had them and blew it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you know what? A blowout tells you it wasn't meant to be. You didn't deserve this. The other team did. That's that. Next week, if the Bears lose by multiple scores against Green Bay, finish 8-8 and miss the playoffs, like I said, then you just flat out don't deserve it. There's not really much to dwell on here. And I've said in previous weeks that we're going to be regretting that loss to the Lions. But you know what? If you lose a game like that to the Lions and then get blown out against Green Bay, you know what? You can't dwell on any moment because you simply wouldn't have been good enough. But if you somehow beat Green Bay next week, I don't care if it's by a point or by 20 points. If you beat them, then all of a sudden, all the feelings change.
I'm just looking at the current playoff matchups.
Mm-hmm.
If the playoffs were to start today, the Bears would go to New Orleans and play New Orleans. Do you have confidence they could beat the Saints?
Not necessarily, no. Not really. What I will, I mean, again, no, but if I had to choose between going to Lambeau or going to New Orleans, I'd rather go to New Orleans.
Well, you're not. I mean, Green Bay is going to get that first round bye, so it's
Well, if you beat them if the Bears somehow beat them next week, that's not guaranteed.
That's true.
Because Seattle won today.
Wouldn't that just be craptastic? Is you beat Green Bay to make it in the playoffs, just to go to Green Bay the next week and just get your asses handed to you?
Yep, that's very possible. That could happen.
Just throwing this out there. Is what if somehow Tennessee mounts a big comeback, wins this game? Well, they just stopped them from scoring another touchdown. So, but
go to bed, Sean.
They're going to keep it. They're going to keep it to being down by less than 20 going into halftime. But just, I mean, stranger things have happened. Look at the Steelers Colts game today. I mean, just say Titans come back, they win this game. So
okay,
and the Bears lose next week, but Arizona gifts them by losing a game to John Wolford.
The gas station.
Yeah, they lose to a gas station attendant. And the Bears have to go to Green Bay in the playoffs, having not beat the Packers in God knows when. And they beat Green Bay in the first round of the playoffs.
That would be like the ultimate FU.
It would be worth it. It's never going to happen. It is essentially a 0% chance of happening. But I can believe, can't I?
Oh, of course.
Hey, hold on. Let me turn on my crock pot and heat up my meatball sauce.
I hope Marty Havlat crock pots were a big sell this Christmas. So, what are you having in this tailgate party? Chili a la Marty Havlat crock pot.
Man, Tampa's got it made. It's almost better than the bye, because then you don't get the rust of having that week off. Is you go in and you play whoever wins the NFC East.
Yeah, really. That's nice.
It's like easy win. You go in there and then you move on. Like if the Bears make it, they're either going to play Seattle, most likely Seattle or New Orleans. And as much as those teams are better than the Bears are actually like a team that could be a problem to those two teams. Not that they could win, but they've got a tough on paper they have a tough defense. Khalil Mack could go off. You could, there's things that could happen. It's not like Washington is just a bad team. They've had the luxury of playing the Cowboys twice, the Eagles twice, the Giants twice. And
Luckies.
The Rams theoretically could have a gas station attendant at quarterback. So Tampa playing on the road against the Redskins, the Washington football team. You're just like, I'll take it.
Tom Brady, he just keeps getting luckier and luckier, doesn't he?
Tom Brady.
Why can't we ever get lucky like that? I mean, we're kind of lucky to be in this spot as it is. I mean, imagine if Arizona won yesterday, then the Bears would need both to win next week and Arizona to lose. So you would need both of that next week if that were the case. And after last night, I was thinking, wow, there's actually a chance here. And then seeing Green Bay do this and hearing that Rams news, wouldn't it be something though if we just eat crow next week and everything's wonderful and we're in the playoffs? I mean, that's the show we definitely want to have. I mean, absolutely. I don't really take any glee on being so down on the Bears as I am in a scenario where they can make the playoffs. But if you follow this team and you know what's going on, you have to understand why we're saying what we're saying. You have to.
I just want the Bears to eventually figure out a quarterback and just have a perennial contending team. Like the other teams that have a legitimate quarterback. The Saints every year are legitimate because they have a legitimate quarterback. The Packers are legitimate playoff contender every year because they have a quarterback. The Chiefs,
the Patriots all those
years.
The
Steelers,
the
Seahawks. Those teams just every year they're perennial contenders because they have figured out the quarterback situation, and the Bears haven't, in my lifetime, ever figured that out.
I know. It's frustrating. And think about all those good defenses. If they would have had good quarterbacks, we'd have more than one trophy in our case. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, I have a question for you, a very curious one.
Okay.
This is just an opinion, and this is just kind of a silly little question. Let's say the Bears were completely out of it. Let's say they had only like 7 or 6 wins, and it was completely over. But Green Bay next week still had something to play for. Call me crazy, but I'd almost feel better if the Bears were in a position to play spoiler than like actually having something on the line against them. Am I crazy for thinking that?
No, because you play loosey-goosey that way. It's like, you know what, we have nothing to lose. Just go out there and nothing to lose. But the Bears aren't in a spot where they have nothing to lose. They have everything to lose because it's win or go home.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the Packers are going to be playing for you said they can't lock it up today, first round.
No, because the Seahawks won.
Okay.
If the Seahawks would have lost to the Rams today, then the Packers winning tonight would have locked it up, and next week wouldn't have really meant anything to them.
Okay, so Seattle's the only other team that can get the number 1 seed?
Well, can't New Orleans get the number 1 seed? Or, well, no, wait. I'm trying to think. No, at this point, no. The Packers are going to win tonight, so no, there's no way. Because remember, the Packers won the head-to-head matchup.
Okay. So,
So look, I mean, if the Rams would have played well today, next week could have looked completely different.
yeah, pretty much.
Like, completely different.
And here we go. Titans about to cut into the Packers lead.
You are really holding out hope here.
Cut into the lead.
What was that, field goal?
No, extra point is 19-7.
Woo! If this show is over and the Titans win,
I'm going to call you and make you get back on.
oh God, please.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, the thing is, the reality of situation with the Bears is I don't think there's anybody that trusts Ryan Pace to fix the quarterback issue at hand.
No.
We're in a cap situation with the low cap number, and we're not going to get a high first round draft pick at this point. So, do you trust Ryan Pace to get us out of the situation that essentially he kind of got us into? And I don't think anybody feels confident that he can. The defense has been regressing all season long. I feel like most people feel like Chuck Pagano needs to go. And I don't know how, and I agree with you that Matt Nagy has kept this team fighting and playing, but he's not brought the offensive prowess that we've expected. And maybe if he can drop 30 on Green Bay next week, maybe I change my mind. I don't think it happens though. That's the beauty of not ending the season on playing a bad team or a team that has nothing to play for. Because you get to see, all right, are we the team that started out 5-1? Are we the team that lost 6 in a row? Are we the team that has been dropping 35 points a game and on a winning streak? Like, which team are we? And I think playing Green Bay answers that, because you're like, well, we're going to play the best team in the NFC. We're going to figure this out. But I don't know how you can fire the defensive coordinator, fire the general manager, and keep the head coach.
I don't know how that'd work either. Like I said earlier in the show, the head coach is the last of those three I'd want to get rid of. But yeah, I mean, that would be a very unique circumstance unless you hire a new GM first and you kind of let that GM decide what they want to do. But
yeah, I mean, of course, you do that. You do bring in your general manager and let him decide.
Right.
But, and maybe they say, oh, we want to tweak the coaching staff, but we'll keep him. That's a possibility. But typically, unless you have a new general manager who you're sort of being like, oh, we'll hire, basically case in point, Ryan Pace with John Fox. And you were like, okay, we're going to pair him. We're going to make the coaching decision for him. You want to give that new GM their decision on who to have there as their head coach, because it's kind of their job. And I'm hoping the Green Bay game sort of makes that decision of who this team is and which direction they want to go. Do they beat Green Bay and suddenly everything goes, well, maybe things are starting to click now? Or they just get trashed and you go, okay, everything was a mirage. And I hate Mike Lombardi, but Mike Lombardi had an article who's like, whoever it is that's the Bears general manager, if Ryan Pace or if he gets replaced, whoever his replacement is, he's basically like, don't buy into Mitch Trubisky because these games that he's won has been against some terrible defenses, and it's a mirage. And honestly, I feel that way and I think the Green Bay game is going to be definitive. Are you a legit team that suddenly figured things out way too late, or are you a pretender that got lucky?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that there is a true test at the end here, because hopefully it could give you some closure no matter what. And I almost rather have closure than anything, whether it's good or bad. I just want closure. I mean, I'm pretty much know where I stand with this team, but I feel like there won't be any questions whatsoever one way or another after next week.
Yeah, I don't think there will be. It's going to be, I think we're going to figure out exactly who we are, and I hope the right decisions are made as far as the front office and the coaching staff.
Yeah. We'll see.
Let's see. Is there anything else Bears you wanted to talk?
No, I've pretty much said my thoughts on that.
Is there anything baseball you want to talk?
Nothing's really happening. I just want to bring up one really quick thing that I want to mention. We're starting to see some Yu Darvish trade rumors, and I'm kind of not surprised that's happening. But you know what? I'm at the point right now where I'm just like, you got to do something. Either build up your farm system or acquire some more players. Because getting Phillip Ervin, Matt Duffy, and those types of moves is not going to make you better. Yes, it's building up depth. I understand you need to build up depth. But you have so many more holes you need to fix. And do something, man. I know you can't rush these things, but I feel like we've just sat in limbo for so long with this team, and it's frustrating. And I'd hate to see Yu Darvish go, but if they could get a nice package deal, I could understand it. What the hell is going to happen to Chris Bryant? You know what? As time goes on, I actually think he's going to be around to start the year. But I'm just saying, man, I just need something to happen for my own sanity when it comes to the Cubs. I'm so sick of just sitting around in limbo. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
You're right. I would love to keep Yu Darvish. Since he's been healthy, he's been fantastic. But if you can get a good deal for him, a good package, I think you're silly to not trade him, because I don't think you're winning anything, and you're desperately trying to trade Chris Bryant, I believe. And you're already talking about the financial issues you have. So Yu Darvish is the easiest way to trim off, what's $25 million?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I hear you loud and clear, and this might be where his value is at his absolute peak. He was the runner-up for Cy Young last year behind Trevor Bauer. His value is as high as ever. He's got 3 years left on his deal. And, yeah, the Cubs, because, they quote-unquote have no money, are probably going to try to shed some salary. And Jed Hoyer's got a hell of a thing to deal with, and I don't envy him. Let's just say that. You know what I picture right now is the hypothetical scenario where you're looking at the team and you say on opening day, not much is different. They promised all these moves and not much is different. And you're kind of in a position where you're like, well, you're evaluating what you have again, and you may be selling off. But you're also looking at a situation where I don't think I can look at this team as a World Series contender, but I still think they can, with this group, they can win this division. The Brewers, I don't think they're going to be doing all that much. It's still early, but they're a flawed team. The Cardinals, say what you want about them, the Cardinals are not the Cardinals that we grew up loathing. They're a very beatable team. There's nothing really that scares me about them. The Reds suck. They're going to be selling off, it looks like, and the Pirates might be the worst team in baseball. The division is still there, in my opinion, but not to win a World Series.
You know what? The division, I mean, not to switch sports, but the division is there for the NFC East for anybody. But what does that mean? You know, you go into the playoffs being the team that, man, everybody's glad that they're playing because you're an easy out.
Right, exactly. You want to focus more on just winning the division. You want to actually have a team that can contend. And yeah, you could say baseball's a crapshoot, yada, yada, yada. You look at the past, decade or so overall, I don't think baseball is much of a crapshoot as it once was.
It's starting to not look like that way. It's, when you have these, you go to these 3-man rotations at the end and you're stacking these amazing pitchers, and the way that you're sort of working the bullpens, and it's much less of a crapshoot, and you're seeing the best teams win.
Yeah. So
I mean, I'm almost of the mind of, I don't care about winning division, a winnable division, when I know it won't mean anything as far as a World Series, because that's all I really care about is the World Series. Playoffs, schmayoffs. If you can't compete for the World Series, then what's the point? And you might as well jumpstart figuring out this team long term. And are they a team that you need to tear down completely and rebuild, or is this a team that you can retool? And I don't know the answer to that. And I think that's going to figure itself out a little bit this year when you see what some of the talent you have in the minors looks like, when the guys you bring up. What are these young pitchers going to look like?
I think there's an argument to be made that you can retool this, in the sense of there's enough talent on the team to build around. The real question is, how do you retool? You're going to have to trade. You're going to have to acquire. You're going to have to develop. How are you going to do all that? Do you build around just Anthony Rizzo and Javier Baez? Does that involve trading Chris Bryant? Does that involve trading Yu Darvish? Does that involve trading Wilson Contreras? You can look at a number of scenarios where you can retool and not completely tear down, a la 2016 Yankees. It's just a lot harder with what you have right now. The Yankees were in a good position where, they're always in good terms of being able to spend money. They could spend as much money as they want. They're the Yankees. They're a bottomless pit. And you had two very valuable assets in Chapman and Andrew Miller, because that if you want a nice big blockbuster, high-end relievers and high-end starting pitchers are what are going to bring you back those big returns. And that's what they had. Sure, you could trade Yu Darvish, but you look at the rest of the trade value with these guys. Bryant's value is at an all-time low. Baez's value is at an all-time low, though I think he's one of the few guys that's pretty much safe from trading. You're probably not going to trade Kyle Hendricks. In my opinion, if you want to grab something, then maybe you look at Wilson Contreras. But you also ask this question: what's the market for him? Is there a team out there desperate for a catcher that can hit, with JT Realmuto still out there? You might not get that return even if his value is still pretty good because of the market. So making big retooling type moves isn't easy.
You're right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the Wilson Contreras thing. I still think the thing that's going to separate or keep an active market for Wilson Contreras is his salary versus what JT Realmuto is going to get.
Sure.
And the fact that this is a COVID year, you're going to have a lot of teams that would love to have him in other years, might even buy into him or bid, that are just going to be out and not want to pay all that money. It's hard to pay a catcher long-term money because the wear and tear that you get at that position.
Well, and that's another thing too you got to keep in mind. I don't think we know yet if there's going to be a DH or not in the NL.
I've heard rumblings that they are acting as if there will not be a DH in the National League.
Right, and that's what I've heard too. If there ends up being a DH in the National League, then things get a little different. There's more room for big bats, is what I'm trying to say.
But, I think the market still is there for having Wilson Contreras because of it's not a long-term deal and the money is a lot more palatable than JT Realmuto.
Which is fair.
So I think
very good point.
You will have some more market there than you would otherwise. And, but you're right. Having another option of a guy that's better, creates a conundrum of some sorts. And if you can't trade Wilson Contreras, then, your retooling is going to be a lot more stymied, I guess.
Yeah, and if you look at the core players, I think Wilson Contreras trade, I don't want to trade him per se, but I think a trade of him would make the most sense right now because the value is there, the control is there, the cost friendliness is there, and he's an asset at a position where you actually do have some depth in the organization that you hope can be the next step up. Miguel Amaya is one of their top prospects, and he's tearing it up down in whatever league he's playing in right now. He's one of your top prospects right now, and there's a lot of promise with him. And also, if you still believe in Victor Caratini, and I think he still can be a decent player, if you believe in those two going forward, then that makes Wilson Contreras a bit more expendable on your end. Whereas trading you Darvish, depending on what you get back, that is one of your top two starting pitchers right there. And the starting pitching position with the Cubs right now, very, very thin. Right now, your only two established starters are Darvish and Hendricks. John Lester is a free agent right now. You're still wondering if Adbert Alzolay, he could be a thing. I've seen some promise with him, but you don't really know for sure. Travis Wood is a free agent. Tyler Chatwood, sorry. He's a free agent. And where else do you go?
Yeah, I don't know. Because if you're trading Darvish, you are trading him to get future assets and cap relief. Not cap, but financial relief.
Right.
So, what pitcher are you going to bring in that's going to be less than the $25 million?
And if you're bringing in prospects that are in the minor leagues, it's not you're going to be like, oh, come on up to the majors. No, you're going to want to develop those guys.
Yeah. It's not everybody's ready to come right up and pitch in the majors.
And I'd hate to feel the team that has a contending lineup, but like a bunch of scraps at starting pitching. That would just be frustrating. Like imagine you trade away Darvish and like Kyle Hendricks is your ace. And then you have a bunch of like minor leaguers / journeymen / like claim off waivers type rotation. That's not going to win you anything.
Nope.
You know who I really don't want, but I kind of think that it might be maybe somewhat, but not really kind of, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm saying I would maybe take a look, even though I wouldn't be overly happy about it. Carlos Rodon's available. I know he's always hurt, but if you're not going to spend anything.
Nope. He's always hurt. That's the problem. Always hurt.
I know. If you got him on a minor league deal, I really don't.
I mean, his stuff is great. His stuff is great.
That's the only reason I'm bringing this up.
I just don't know. You would have to get him on a a minor league deal, and then with the option to come up, And I don't know if he accepts that, because I'm sure there's somebody that will give him a big league spot based on his
Right,
talent.
and I also have that feeling he wouldn't sign with the Cubs you know what I mean.
I mean, does he feel that way just because there's some animosity between the two teams? I don't know if the players feel that way. It's not like it's
Well, I've
it's
seen him
Cardinals.
trash the Cubs on Twitter. So
Oh, he has?
yeah.
Okay, then. But you know what? Money talks.
Yeah, if they're the only ones offering him a job, then I don't think he would. I don't think he'd say no. But if there were other people offering him a job,
Yeah. But it's always nice to not have to up and move just because you got released from let go from your job. The ability to still stay in the same city, stay in your same house and everything.
I mean, I could be completely wrong, and maybe he was just joking around on Twitter. I don't know. He just posted a meme one time. That's really the only thing I could reference. So, whatever. But that's my whole baseball spiel. I don't really have anything else. I just wanted to bring it up because we haven't talked baseball in a while.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to talk any hockey, but I just want to bring up one topic. It's a fracture topic. I'm sure you've seen the photos of Kirby Dach.
I have, and I have a friend who works with the Blackhawks, and it doesn't even look real. It's ugh.
It looks bad.
There's no way he's playing this year.
How does his wrist go in the shape of a Z?
At first I thought it was fake. I'm like, no way that's real. And it's like, oh wow, it is real.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's going to be that terribly long because it's a bone. So essentially I'm sure they're going to do surgery and put in some sort of plate or rod or something, and then it heals. But I'm not a surgeon. I would assume he doesn't come back until March.
I don't know. Who knows? The Blackhawks did make a move though. I don't know if you heard.
No, I didn't.
So they brought in Carl Soderberg. He was on Arizona last year. He was with Colorado and Boston before that. He's a fairly familiar name in the NHL. He is a center. Let's see. 2 years ago, he scored over 20 goals. He's kind of averaging between 12 and 18 goals outside the 120 goal score. Nothing overly exciting, but I look at this signing as, hey, they need a body, they need some depth, and for a 1 year, $1 million contract, I don't really mind this move at all. I don't think it really makes it much better. We'll probably have a whole Blackhawks season preview when the time comes, but yeah, I'm not liking our chances. Let's just say that.
Bob McKenzie is saying that a fracture is 4 to 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks if there's surgery required. So we're probably looking at 6 to 8 weeks. So if it goes well, he misses a month of the season.
Well, let's hope it goes as well as possible.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's much worse scenarios out there.
Yeah, let's just hope it doesn't reach the worst.
So let's talk these Bulls.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about, a lot last week. And you saw a lot of mixed results in the preseason. There was games where they just looked really good. There was games they looked bad against the same team because they played them multiple times. But man, to start this season, they've gotten blown out twice.
I had to turn the game off at halftime both times. I mean, I thought Indiana, that was going to be a tough game, but once they started going on that 21-0 run, it just, oh my God, everything fell apart. And then against Atlanta, yeah, Atlanta made pretty much everything they threw up, but they were slow getting back on defense. They had a lot of careless turnovers, and they were just being outsped, outmanned, everything on defense. I mean, they've given up, 83 points at the half? Look, I know this team is going to struggle, but man, those first two games, I thought they would be better than that. And I know there's a long way to go. I don't want to draw any conclusions yet, but I just thought it'd be a little better than this. You hope that they could wrap this game up against Golden State and get their first win here, but they're up 105-100 with 8 minutes to go. We'll see how that ends, but yeah, those first two games, those were ugly.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad when C-Red Fred is spitting venom on Twitter. Is Fred is the eternal optimist, and just his hatred and anger, like, I feel like the poor guy's gonna have a grabber, with the way how worked up he is about this team, and he's right. Everybody's seeing it. It's you look, and the way that they set up on offense is, it's so poor. The passes, the shot selection, the awareness of what's the situation, getting back on defense. The Atlanta game, you're right. Atlanta was just out of their minds with some of the shots they were hitting, but the Bulls didn't do themselves any favors, and the Indiana game was just bad. You're seeing them play a little better tonight, but they're also in this because Steph Curry is missing lots of shots.
Yeah. Can I just say one quick thing about that Atlanta game?
Sure.
Trae Young, man.
Yeah.
Whew. He's something.
He is very good. He's very good.
Could you imagine if the Bulls had a guy like that to build around? Man.
Instead, we've got Thomas Satoransky.
Hey, he's the GOAT.
No, literally, he's a goat.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, Billy Donovan essentially went to the media and pantsed the team and said that, they're gonna try to teach them how to win, but essentially this is a team that is so used to playing losing basketball in a losing organization that they don't know how to win. And that's absolutely true. And in case in point, sorry, I'm watching the game right now, and the shot clock's running out, and Zach fires up like he's halfway to the half court line instead of setting up the offense and getting a better shot. He was a contested, super long 3-pointer, and of course he missed. It's like, damn it, just set up the offense, set it up. But going back to my point is, the Cubs went through this. What was the Cubs' nickname for the longest time? The lovable losers. And they had to learn how to win baseball games. And that's the same thing with this Bulls team. Is they're under Garpax and Boylan and all the other terrible coaches they've had, that this has been a losing franchise. When they won, it was despite their mistakes not because they were, just had an off night or because they were so good. This was a losing organization, and you have to get rid of that losing mentality. And so Billy Donovan, I'm not upset with him. I know Doug Tonis was saying that, like, we would have lambasted Boylan had he said something similar, but I think there's a different situation between when Boylan does something and Billy Donovan does it. It's Boylan has his own mistakes. Billy Donovan is trying to implement this system and get players to buy in, and it involves a lot of young players buying in, learning, and doing what they need to do, and they're just not doing it.
No, and I think this is a humble reminder to us, and I know we're kind of changing the tone compared to last week's episode, but I think this is a humble reminder that this team still has a long way to go. And I've always felt that way. I just thought for the first few games we'd see a little bit better, and maybe things will get better as we go along, but there's a lot that AK and Billy Donovan have to clean up, and that might take a while. It might take some time to kind of pound some of the instincts out of the Bulls players' heads that were in a losing culture for all those years. I mean, a lot of these young players, all they've known is a bad Bulls culture. So it doesn't take overnight to just snap your fingers and be like, all right, this is your attitude. This is how you approach things. This is how you win. That's going to take some time. And, I don't know what's going to happen by the end of the year. And maybe this is my early hot take, panicky hot take. We'll see. I think if the Bulls win less than 27 games this year, I almost tempted to say, you know what, just let AK tear a lot of this down and just let him build the team the way he wants. Don't work around a core that's already been put in place. Don't try to make something work that doesn't work. Just build it the way you think it should be built. But you know what, let's see what happens. We're only 2 games in, almost 3 now. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, here's my thing is I said last week, and I agreed, that this Atlanta Bulls game 1, being played game 1, is going to be a completely different game than if it's played game 50, game 60. This both teams, I mean, Atlanta is looking better than early on than I was expecting them to, but I think both teams are on the rise, and I think both teams have sort of got to figure some things out. I think what we're going to see with this Bulls team is come game 35 or so, I think you're going to see a completely different team than you are games 1, 2, and 3. And you need to. Obviously, there's some talent here, but it's young players have to buy in. They just have to. You can't rely on raw talent and ISOs and just chucking balls up. Like, that's just you can't do that. And that's kind of what they've done is you've got to be able to play defense. You have to have situational awareness. I mean, there's these guys. Zach LaVine had some just terrible team defense. Lauri Markkanen just looks flat-footed at points. Like, depending on some of the personnel that we're seeing on the court, is they're going to be a bad defensive team, but you're starting to see some more versatile players that can make them a better defensive team with other configurations of roster players. You put out Patrick Williams and Wendell Carter, and you get a little bit better of a defense. But when you've got Kobe White and Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen out there, you're going to have a rough ride sometimes. And And that's what we're seeing. And all you can do is go make them watch film, see what mistakes they made, get back on the practice floor, and figure those things out. And that's what you do with a young team and a new system. Billy Donovan is he's a good teacher, and that's what he's brought here to do. And it's young players are going to buck. That's what they do. They're going to, you look at any player, and a lot of things are instinctive. And if you've been doing something one way for a long time, then that's the way you're going to revert to when you get pressed. And it's going to take a while for them to be like, okay, that's not my go-to anymore. That's not my instincts anymore. I have to change my habits and my instincts, and it just takes a little time.
Yeah, and the one thing I can confidently say right now is I feel like the Bulls have the right people in place to establish that. It will take time, yes, but if you were to compare confidence in Garpax and Boylan versus AK and Billy Donovan, if you're going to change that, who do you have more confidence in? The answer is clearly this one.
Oh.
So at least I got that going for us.
Yeah, clearly. But, this team is not devoid of talent. It's just an odd mix of talent. And you sort of have to figure out how to balance this team out. And I think more and more the Pat Williams pick is a good one, because I think he can do a lot of things well, but he adds versatility and being able to play defense. And that's something that this team desperately needs. Wendell can be a good defender. Zach's terrible. Laurie's terrible. You've got a bunch of terrible defensive players, but you've got some solid guys that can put up points. I mean, Kobe White just hit a contested three that he made his own shot. Created off the dribble. So you've got guys that can score. It's can you defend? Can you be consistent? Can you buy into this team defense? Can you buy into this offense so you're not having to create, isolation shots?
The nice thing looking at the box score right now is, with 4 minutes left to go, Zach LaVine's got 30 points. Kobe White's got 20 points. Lauri Markkanen has 23 points. So you have really three of the top guys you want scoring. And Wendell Carter Jr. has 18 points, so he could very well get into that 20-plus point range. That's the nice things you want to see. Lauri Markkanen, this is a make-or-break year for him. He's 4 for 7 from the three-point line. Zach LaVine is 4 for 11, but still, he's got over 30 points now. He's got 31 points. Kobe White is 4 for 7, so shooting nicely from the three-point arc there. Like Lauri Markkanen. If this team can just buckle down, they're never going to be great with this core this year, but if you could buckle down and play somewhat respectable, then you can at least say, you know what, we do have the guys that can score.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, watching this game, I like some of the movement this team has when Kobe White is playing point. It's just, my thing with him is he's such a good scorer. I don't know if you don't run him with the seconds, like how do you get consistent scoring when you put your subs in? I just,
you're not going to get a lot of scoring off the bench.
Yeah, and I think you sort of need to get scoring off the bench. I think this team is going to have to thrive with doing well with the second team, and I just don't know how they do that.
Yeah, I know that's going to be tough. I mean, who's your best scorer on the bench? I mean, you're looking at Otto Porter, Chad Hutchinson, Thomas Sadaransky. Gary Temple's not going to be.
Yeah, but none of those. Yeah, I don't trust any of those guys to be a consistent scorer.
I don't either.
Lauri Markkanen, you're not going to put him on the second team and have him be a consistent scorer. you're looking at him to be the spot up shooter. It's almost like you have to put Kobe White with that second unit, but he's running so well with the first unit. It's a tough one.
I think Otto Porter Jr. is a solid ball player, and if he's on the bench and Williams is starting, then I think you at least give your bench some veteran presence that can play decently. But it's just, you're going to need more than that, like you said, because outside of the guys I just read, Luke Cornett, Cristiano Felicio, Gafford, Archidiakono, if Denzel Valentine ever plays again, I mean, it's not exactly the bench mob you have there. And yeah, I mean, that was one of the things I looked at the starting lineup. The very first game of the season, I saw that lineup. You had Markkanen, Williams, Carter, White, and Levine. I'm like, the first thing I said was, that starting lineup, that can score you some. But then I thought, what about the bench?
Yeah, it's the thing is Otto Porter Jr. is not an energy guy. He's not bringing you energy.
No.
Yeah.
More the basic fundamentals. Really.
He's going to be a 3-and-D guy, and he's not a bad player. He's an overpaid player, but he's not he's basically a 3-and-D guy. You don't have anybody that can create shots and of course there's going to be guys that can hit a shot here and there, but you don't have anybody that can create a shot if need be on that second unit. And it's I think that's something that they're going to have to address clearly is is you need to be able to sit guys down and for rest or foul trouble or God forbid injury and have consistent scoring after your starting five. And there's nobody there that can create their shot. There's nobody that can consistently score. It's going to be if you can get that offensive system in place and score that way, that's going to be your best bet on offense for this Bulls team in the second unit.
Yeah, right on.
And here's where Golden State starts mounting their comeback.
Yeah, it's getting kind of tight.
Steph Curry time.
I was hoping the Bulls could really pull away in those last few minutes there, but no, it's a tight one.
Because Steph Curry's starting to hit his shots now.
Mm-hmm.
He's so good. And now we're looking at a 4-point game here. Yeah. So hopefully they are able to pull out their first win of the season, even though this is this is clearly not the same Golden State team that was abysmal last year because they've got Steph Curry, but it's still not the juggernaut that they were a couple of years ago.
No, and when you've had a lead over them pretty much most of the second half, you want to be able to close a team out.
Right. Well, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think in a few weeks we'll have to do our Blackhawks pregame. So I'm going to save a lot of my Blackhawks thoughts for the official pregame of the regular season, I should say.
When does training camp and stuff? Oh man, they're working on Markkanen's knee.
Oh, great. That's why he came out. I'm looking at the ESPN feed, and it said Otto Porter Jr. coming in for Lauri Markkanen. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. But when did the Blackhawks start training camp and preseason stuff? I know the season starts the 13th.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like right after New Year's.
Yeah, they're gonna have to jump right into that.
Yeah. And again, we'll talk about it later, but oh man, that schedule.
Yeah, but you know what? Hockey will be back.
Exactly.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn app, Google Play, Spotify. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Again, thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.